Right. All right, it is 7:15 and I will call to order the September 24th, 2024 meeting of the Manchester Essex Regional School District Essex School Building Committee. To those of you online, thank you for being patient with us. We were wrapping up the tour of the building, which took a little bit longer, so thank you. We don't have any new business, but before we go on to continued business, can we just do one more round of names for everyone? There are a couple of us who weren't here last time and that sort of thing. Don't need a long intro, but just some names, especially so Annie can write us down correctly. So we have Pam.
Hi, Pam Bowden, I'm the superintendent.
Teresa Whitman, School Committee.
John Benares, School Committee.
Ruth Green, Board of Selectmen.
Dave Marine. Home inspector, Ahmad.
Jen Hockerman.
Mike Gerhard.
Pam Provo, Principal. Annie Cameron.
And Gordon Brewster.
Andy Olden.
Jason Malden, District Facility Manager.
Thank you very much. And do we have any of our people online? Any?
I don't think so.
All right, these are community members. All right, well, welcome community members. So moving on to continued business, debrief of the Essex Elementary Building Tour. We just made it through. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that things are ready to be undertaken for a big project here. I don't think we need to sell it real hard here, but it is important to go through and have that access. And someone else was asking if there will be more tours. There probably will throughout this whole project. There will be more opportunities to tour. But it does bear repeating that the team has done a great job keeping things going and that it has been well maintained over the years. There's a reason Memorial went first. And we're grateful for the building to still be standing and functional and to give us the time we need to get this underway. Any questions or follow-up from the tour? Yeah.
Just for those who haven't been
Mike.
outside, Mike Gerhard, for those who haven't been outside, there's a playground which was rebuilt a few years back. After
The
they,
first year of COVID.
yeah, first year of COVID, after they took down one, they've been there for a while, and like a hot top and then some playing fields that are just, they're okay, but they get really swampy. And when it rains, it gets really wet.
Yeah.
And then we do have usually town meeting here from like in the gymnasiums, a couple times a year, the whole town. Most of the town, a lot of the towns are here. So we do.
Not
use it.
enough of this.
Not enough, but a good chunk. So we do use it for community stuff as well. For those who are from Essex.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? Are you,
Nope.
if you're raising your hand, all
Can
right,
I just ask
please.
Andy and Gordon kind of just speak to like what you've seen between the last time we looked at this building, which I think was a couple of years ago, and today? Like, what have you seen, where have you seen some decline or some areas that are?
Honestly, it presents similarly to me, just because I've seen it close to isolated occurrences, but otherwise, I would say, it's 2 years on from when we did see it before, and, from a building system standpoint, those, they were wanting for attention 2 years ago, so they're still wanting and wanting more than now. And that goes to, reliability. And I would say the other thing that strikes me, other than just, the presentation of the space, versus, a new school or a school that's had a substantial project done to it, where the quality of the spaces are, not what they deserve to be. I would say as much as the school's been well taken care of, I think the school reflects the vintage of its construction. And the other aspect I would say is one of energy efficiency. Certainly the energy codes now are Massachusetts very forward leaning. And this school is many generations removed.
I'm not sure I could add much to that. That pretty much sums it up, but I've been here 3 times. This is my 3rd. I read the report again today and I walked through the building time review and it just reinforced that same idea. Really well maintained. Whoever the staff is that runs it, it's kudos to you. It really is. It is great. Great. It's functional. That becomes a double-edged sword. It's deceptive in the thinking that, well, maybe we could stay here a little bit longer. A little more paint, a little more Band-Aids, a little more something here like that. But the reality is, in the long run, this place is seen in spot today. It's gone past useful life. And I know, I understand the wood is good and the fit and finish is good, but when we do, if and when we do a tour of Manchester Memorial, what you see is what a current day school look like, with exactly the same function as this one. And then I believe the decision will be made up. I've worked at Andy for 20 years on different types of projects. They do up to talk about seriously about that. Involve all my clients who not sure whether they want to keep or go, let go of something, but after doing this for so long, there comes a point where you just say it's time to go, move on for a brighter future for the next 50 years. That would be to do it. And this is that case.
Thank you.
What part of the building is the 1975?
In the back, Jim, the back area.
And everything else is.
Anything else following up from the tour?
Now that Annie has set us both up to say exactly what she wanted us to say.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Jason just to speak to the mushy feel, because that's something we've dealt with. It's studied separately from engaging in any thoughts about the building project. If you just want to kind of give the status report on that side athletic field.
Yeah, there's drainage back there, but basically, the drainage is, the pipe has basically collapsed, corroded, so it's not draining at all. There's a manhole cover kind of in the corner between the field and the playground. From there, there's a drain pipe that goes kind of across the playground into the little pond there. And then there's a drain pipe that goes from that back corner kind of all the way out here and kind of leaches into there. That pipe has completely corroded. We drew a camera in there. We got like 15 feet in, and there's just nothing but rocks and again, collapsed pipe. We were able to repair the one going into the stream there. That was that this would be a significant project. So you'll see, I kind of joke around in the kind of springtime, you'll literally have like a small pond on the field, and you'll have like ducks swimming in there, and families. It's nice for the kids to see. But when we have soccer on a Saturday and the field is flooded and it hasn't rained since Tuesday, that's a problem, and that's what we're kind of facing that field.
Where's that surface water coming from? Just rain, you're talking about rain and.
Yeah.
I just had one question, sort
Sure.
of following up on something that you mentioned, in terms of sort of making the decision. Is there, in terms of, surveys done by folks in town, is there a strong sentiment that people want to keep this building? That there's an emotional attachment to this building?
My understanding, that's all part of the process that we're about to
So there's
undertake.
no, okay, there's no data yet on that.
But there are vocal people who are influential, who are adamant that a renovation is the way to go. So that's why it's important that folks who are experts on this committee kind of educate the public as to kind of, what does that mean for you? Like, what does it cost like? What does the product look like at the end? That I think in the last two processes has been very effective in convincing voters that this is truly a sound investment. It's not, you're not wasting people's. So you got the same thing in Manchester when we did Memorial School, right?
I guess what I would add as my first time looking through it, I'm an architect and a builder, and I specify in retrofitting buildings. So I'm always looking, first is what you guys said about the systems, actually. The place would need to be stripped down to the bones. But I'm always looking at the bones too. I want to really understand whether there's some promise here. And I think just with a couple of comments that I made, just about the ceiling heights alone, that makes things really challenging the second you start to think about new systems. But what I would say is, because we're just starting this, I think it's good to keep an open mind, and I would really like to understand I don't even understand what's structural here, for instance. I saw some columns. I don't know whether those block walls are structural or not, because if they're not, Maybe there's a possibility to open up and change the proportion of spaces. So I guess what I'm saying is basement, I've got some real issues with. Systems, I know that has to go. The sustainability, I was gonna jump on the same thing. Totally possible to wrap the building in a new high performance envelope. There's no question about that. It's really about understanding the program and the structure of the building and to see whether those two match or just don't match.
And
So
we will
whether
have
it's
a
valid or not.
specific meticulous process to go through to
Exactly.
understand all of this so that we can come to understanding. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, the great news is MSBA requires us to vet a renovation. And their mantra is the most cost-effective
Yeah.
solution to address the needs of the program.
Yeah.
So they marry those two things together and they force us through the process of, force us to look at new, force us to look at renovation. We're going to explore a couple of other options if we accept the scope of feasibility in terms of other potential mergers that could happen. So the whole process over the next year and a half is to go through and study have our expert teams study those teams and report to us what it would look like, what it would cost, and then get to give them feedback on which direction we want to go. And that's where the public does come into play, which is they'll present those options for large community focus groups and get the feedback on it. So that's all in due time. We have to get into the next phase to start to get that ball rolling.
Anything else, or can we wrap up our debrief of the tour?
Only thing I would ask Kim to add on is just the handicap accessibility component and impact it's having, because I don't know if that's evident to everyone, and just maybe have it on the record.
Yeah, so we've had to move special education programs out of the building into the other elementary school just because of ADA accessibility and just not having bathrooms that a student can use. Even the nurse's office is not equipped to handle a student that would be in a wheelchair. I didn't take you into the space because it's right across the hall, but even just in terms of being able to accommodate certain like special education groupings, like all of our special education liaisons and all of their small groups are all located in one classroom. And that really goes back to what I had said earlier about just that lack of like flexible, like smaller space. A lot of our smaller spaces, because of storage, is taken up by storage materials. So it's just been difficult to find those like small group spaces for students to work if they're sort of all crammed together.
Can I also point out that wheelchairs aren't necessarily equal sped, like wheelchairs can be in the general population.
Right.
There are a number of accessibility issues that
Absolutely.
arise from general population as well.
And as we talk about cost management, we're fortunate that we do have a building where we can offer another placement for students to get their education. If we don't have capacity in that building, now we would be looking at finding an alternative setting for them and tuitioning them someplace else. So we always want our kids in the least restrictive environment and as close to their home base as possible. So bringing those programs that actually Essex began and built back home is really something that we're looking forward to.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming early and going through the building with us all together. Moving on to the design enrollment projection letter from MSBA. We're hoping to take a vote on that tonight. So for those who weren't here at the last meeting, we had received the MSBA enrollment projection letter, and we discussed it briefly, but we decided to hold off on a vote until this meeting for two reasons. One was so that the full report, not only the letter, but the full report could be disseminated and everyone would have a chance to dive into that a little bit and understand where they were coming from with some of the numbers that they came up with. And the second reason was so that any additional information that might be pertinent to the enrollment projection could be shared at this meeting and then potentially in a notice going back with the letter. Lisa O'Donnell, who's chairman of the planning board, had brought that up at the last meeting. So taking those in reverse, I will share, she's not able to be here tonight. But I spoke with her today and I know she had mentioned it briefly, but it is all in process now that there is a large development coming at the end of Essex Park Road. I keep saying Essex Beach Road. It's not, it's Essex Park Road. For either 30 or 36, likely 36, single-family, four-bedroom homes. So that is a considerable amount of families coming to town and potential children for our school district. Looking at other parcels with similar capacity in town, there aren't any with that much acreage. That's over 80 acres of land. There's at least one that that the owner has expressed interest in developing, but that's maybe an 18 acre. And there are some additional parcels that are potential for that, but the only one before the board right now and in actual process is that large one right now. Explained it to Pam. She has let MSBA know it's not enough to move the needle, but again, it's helpful to be sure that we're giving them all of the information that we have available. And that is something we didn't have at the time that this information was provided to them that we do now have. So with that in mind,
May I ask a question?
sure.
They chose not to recognize the fact that more families would be moving into town over
They recognize it, but it's not as if the number isn't like you hit 250. We're growing toward a 250 max in what, 10 years?
50 is our number right now.
Yeah, so the 36 units currently in development isn't going to necessarily translate into raising that to 275, because it's not like when you hit 250, you can't get to 275 or 280 in your building. So it's one piece of their methodology. It's not the variable that moves something forward or backward. But we can keep talking to them. They were pleased that we let them know. They like that we call every time.
But your intent was to increase the number to reflect what may be the true number we have at the time it's built.
So I think I'll just share my experiences. These numbers aren't ever really true. They're estimates of what potentially could happen. So while we might have, a 36 unit development in the short term and get a quick hit before we might even get people in before we're building a building. It isn't necessarily going to change the long-term trajectory that they've calculated. And these aren't usually right. In the end, we're usually way off from them. I mean, we're doing okay against what they projected from Memorial School in the short term, but I mean, we could certainly go back and say, we aren't going to budge until you raise our number by 36.
I think what we had talked about last time was kind of an understanding amongst the group that we're not really going to plant a firm, stake on this one, but that we just wanted to ensure that they have all of the most current information, and that was information that wasn't available at the time.
That was a matter of record.
Exactly, to have it on the record.
So let me
Yeah.
ask you a follow-up question. On page 3, there's a kind of a 245 to 250. What prompted that add of 5? You don't know. It was prior to the notification of the additional.
This is from the summer.
So that doesn't take.
What page are you on? And
She's looking at.
I'm looking at page 3 where it went to, they said, oh, we reconsidered and we added 5. See, added system enrollment, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I did this, that didn't account for what you guys had told them, so it was not factored in. Okay.
the survival ratios?
I'm not getting into that. I don't understand that.
Down here. Yeah, once you've taken into account out of district enrollment, the total is 250, but up here it's 245.
I guess it doesn't matter because we're at 250. Great.
And
So,
that's, make sure it's absent pre-K. So pre-K is a separate calculation.
Okay.
And they don't estimate.
So, sorry, Henry has a question.
Same topic, so.
no, because I'm,
Quick question about something Sandy broke at the last meeting, which was potential capacity at Memorial. Extra capacity. If a number is generated, that capacity, is that going to be subtracted from
That's what the 515 number is.
Like, here's what I-
Yeah, so the district-wide grade K-5 enrollment design number would be 515. The current capacity for Memorial was 335.
So
So
before,
they're projecting roughly 515. We have a building that has capacity for 335, so we would already know that we need to make building adjustments.
Thank you.
so just to go in order here, does anyone have questions from the full report that was sent out, that we were able to see the background of it, what went into the decision? So we're good with the full report as it stands. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious that they do talk about summer housing project descriptions, so somebody must have fed them information, and it talks about the Van Wyck parcels with 50 units. That's not what Lisa's talking about?
We're not sure.
We're not sure. That's what I thought.
Yeah. So that, my understanding was that information was given in January, February,
Yeah,
by the time when all of that was still very, very nebulous.
both town administrators were asked to produce some history, and some projections about what they anticipated, and we just gave them everything that the towns had to share with us. I think,
To add to the 50 where that number came from, when the Board of Health Administrator went out and did her test pits, it perked for 50 homes. So when they did the septic design, it would allow for 50, but the builder who's come forward with the OSRD is looking at between 30 and 36, based on the three design options.
so to a certain degree, we want to back out a little bit, because this is really their formula for what's their calculation for what they'll financially support in a grant to the community. So if it's 250 or 270, I don't know that it moves the needle that much. It's really going to all factor into a calculation about what is reimbursable square footage and options in the building. If for some reason, like with the Memorial project, there was lack of comfortability with the design enrollment number for the Memorial project, and decisions were made to add some additional space in anticipation of growth down the line. The committee can certainly consider that when it's going through the design options. And that'll be a cost benefit analysis for this group in terms of, is it better to build in some extra capacity in anticipation that this is a best estimate based on information at this point in time, or do you go strictly by what's reimbursable? So those are future decision points that we're going to have, and we're going to have to work through pre-K, because that's going to be a slightly different discussion with them. They do that slightly differently than they do the K-5 reimbursement and calculations.
So now that we've had a chance to look at the full report and also make sure that we have all of the current information, and the MSBA has it also, is there anything, questions or points about the actual letter that we want to discuss here before voting to accept it?
The actual letter is what we sent to us,
Yes.
without signature.
Yes. And we talked about it and broke it down a little bit last time. Annie, I think you had a point you wanted to bring.
Yeah, I wanted to look at page 4 in that paragraph with the current grade, with the current grade K-5 enrollment configuration. So I just want to kind of break out what we're supposed to do if we decide to go with a different configuration. So right now, the default configuration is K-5 here. And,
Pre-K-5.
or possibly pre-K-5.
Pre-K-5.
Okay. Yay. But if you decide to go in a different direction, please note any potential grant associated with the proposed project that includes the pre-K to 3 configuration resulting in grade blah, 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 will be limited to work in the Essex Elementary School. So if you I just want to say this out loud. If you decide to go with a different configuration, any modifications you would make in Memorial are on our dime, right? Is that what this is saying? Or it's not part of the program?
Any modifications that are not to accommodate learning spaces for Essex students will be on our dime. So if, let's say, we'll use the easy example, you do a full merger, right? So just by the math, we'd have to find a way to accommodate an additional 200 students in that building. So you might need to add classroom spaces. So if we add the classroom spaces, reimbursable. If we decide that we need to make some modifications to the cafeteria, potentially not reimbursable. Add seating to the gym, potentially not reimbursable. Like, it's going to be, we're gonna have to work piecemeal through it to see what are things that we need to do just to make the building more functional because we're adding more people, and what things we really have to do to accommodate getting those kids learning spaces, in that building.
I'm not sure I read that again. I read it more kind of the way Andy said, kind of a hard line, anything you do in Manchester won't be reimbursed. Am I just not reading it correctly?
Well, I think she's saying if you're throwing everybody in one building at Memorial School, that's an enhanced scenario. And I think there's also a possibility here, pre-K through 3 of one school, the existing elementary school, and then a 4 through 5 at Memorial School. So that's the third, right? That's the third option. So I just wanted to, right now, when we submit the preferred schematic report, whatever, for the default right now, the assumed one is pre-K through 5 here, and then if we're doing something different, it's gonna be a different.
There
path.
is no assumption. That's where we have to vet everything from renovation to a rebuild here to a completely merged pre-K 5 on the site of Memorial and a potential redistricting of pre-K 3 here, 4, 5 there. I think what they're trying to communicate is they are not going to pay us to do a redistricting project in terms of looking at all of the, there's no contribution to us figuring out operationally if there's a cost benefit to it. We might be able to extract something if we needed to add classrooms, but I think you picked that split number in anticipation that you likely wouldn't need classrooms. I think that's why it was brought forward to us.
So they won't support the effort to study
Operationally, no.
permutations and combinations over in Manchester?
Physical facilities, yes. Operational efficiencies, no.
Okay. How do you separate the two?
You mean adding teachers and?
In classrooms, potentially.
Right, so I think if you get into the pre-K 3, 4, 5 scenario, now you might be able to put, based on current enrollment, you might be able to find 4 classrooms to accommodate. But now you've thrown off all of your shared staff ratios, so you might have to add staff. You're gonna have to add bus runs, you're gonna have to add kitchens, you're gonna have to keep double thick. You might have to actually take increases. If we want the answers to those questions, we're gonna have to do that ourselves.
I think it is important to clarify this though, because I am reading this the same way you are, that is,
Right way.
well, no, which is to say that if the preferred design was pre-K through 3 here, 4 and 5 there, that only the EES work is eligible for grant.
Renovations to that building, even the physical work, is not gonna be covered according to that sentence.
So it's important that we,
Honestly, I've only considered it, when we've kind of thought about this idea that it would only be because there's found space over there. Like there's 3 empty bathrooms, is there some synergy that makes sense? Otherwise, why? Because then you're still doing some project here, which is gonna be, still a healthy chunk of money, and then you're doing some, who the hell knows what over there.
On a building you just spent
Right.
$50 million on.
And getting buy-in from the district and the 2 towns, to kind of follow down that road.
There could be a good facilities reason to do it. I don't think any one of the educational leaders would promote that idea. To take 2 kids, to take the 2 grades, 4, 5, and integrate them into an existing school building, school culture, without doing a lot of reorganization work. I think it isn't represented here, and we don't have the authority to do it until we open up the regional agreement. But if you were really going to look at a lower and an upper, you would split the entirety of elementary lower and upper so that you have a common pre-K 2 or 3 and a common 4, 5 or 3, 5, all kids together.
but the assumption of some considerable facilities money on that is the reason that it has been brought forth to us through the school committee and continues to sort of run around, that it would be cheaper to build a smaller building here and that there would be some sort of savings, but it's an assumption. And so that's what's bringing forth the desire for us to look at it at all. Not programmatic in nature, financial only. So is there anything else in the letter that people need to ask about or understand better before we take a vote to?
I just said, when I saw the word preferred solution everywhere here.
That's their nomenclature.
When you agree with what they come up with, I guess, that.
Well, no, that's-
We come up
what
with
we
a preferred solution.
And then have to document the process if it's not that the pre-K through 5, as we originally included in the application. It says here we would have to document the process, require a written plan describing the process for determining local support for the preferred grade reconfiguration. So we would have to be very clear about how we came to that and how much the communities truly are in support of such an option.
So if you think about it, when we did Memorial School, we had two options. We had renovation or rebuild. And we vetted those two options and we had multiple scenarios for each.
Oh my God, it'd be a multiple scenarios.
So this is essentially expanding our work to say, we have those two options, which are the kind of the standard options. Plus we're adding in the option of using Memorial as the site and creating a merger. So we're gonna have to study and do all of those, all of the things we do for renovate, all of the things we do for rebuild now for merger. And then we're going to have to also do the same for pre-K 3, 4, 5 split. With the caveat, and I don't think it's written in there, the last two options, if it is looking like those become our preferred solutions, we will stop dead in the MSBA process until we amend the regional agreement because they won't accept a preferred solution that the school committee doesn't have the authority to execute. So looking at all of those variables, you can kind of, one could guess how the process is going to go, but we have to study and answer it objectively using our experts.
So that becomes our purview as well. What happens in Manchester?
Is there a possibility, is there a possibility of cutting this off at the pass, right? I mean, it's not a groundswell of interest in doing a different configuration. There were a few voices that were asking the question, but I'm wondering, is there a way of kind of like, knocking that one down? If,
Right.
I'm revealing, showing my cards, but is there a way of kind of like addressing that and saying, we're not going to pursue that any further because it's kind of a waste of time and money to pursue that. And we're going to inform them of that, and then we'll go ahead with the renovation, those three options.
If you want my recommendation, I think what we would do is go forward, hire our OPM,
Yep.
bring on our architect, and ask them to find the most efficient way to work through the options.
Yeah.
Using their expertise to run some initial cost benefit on it. I'm sure with their expertise, they can give us some ballpark figures in terms of pursuit of each option to see if it, if one of them comes up and it's drastically going to be much more cost effective, then we probably have an obligation to pursue it. But I think there's value in having our hired team of experts who don't have a stake in the outcome. Their stake in the outcome is to make sure we get a cost-effective building that promotes our programming and can get supported by the MSBA. It's not any of the constituent voices.
Presumably, we'd have to buy their more scope from the architect and the OEM to kind of ride along with us, to kind of check out those other options.
We have a pretty healthy, it's 1.5 was our ask.
But it's really just a kind of a feasibility study phase where you just tackle those, what is it now, 4 or 5 different.
Renovate, rebuild, merge, split.
Yeah, right. So,
There goes Dan.
but presumably, I think that's what you're saying, Ben, that we get to that decision after that feasibility study.
Or it's like a phase one. Which one do we want to keep moving?
Right.
That's PDP. first phase of the building stuff.
And I would say from the school committee perspective of that, what, from the conversations we've had at the committee level, the best move forward would be to let the hired professionals give us that first pass at it, make a recommendation to this group, have this group then make a recommendation to the school committee based on what the hired professionals have told us, because I know what the committee is looking for is, well, what, maybe there are things we don't even know we don't know. That could be discovered there. So if we can get that first pass by the OPM to make, that's the order of operations I'm looking at here. Have them make a recommendation to here, and then have this group make a recommendation to the school committee.
And that's an interview question, right, for both the OPM and the architect, which is we have kind of a unorthodox, set of parameters here. What's the most efficient way to move through this so we don't waste time and money?
But they see this kind of stuff sometimes.
I'm sure, yeah,
Not new.
not new.
Wow.
And we don't have to come up with all of the solutions, which is,
I'm just thinking about if we don't build all that we plan on building here, we build less and they'll build something else over there. That's a whole nother layer. It'd be interesting. It'd be like flipping those cards up and down.
I mean, that's essentially what competitions are. Competitions are, you put it out to a group of designers, architects, whatever, engineers, to come up with the best solution. Here is our program, here are our needs, here are the potential sites, here are the potential configurations. 10, 20 different firms, give it a shot, and the best one wins. So if you're controlling that process with an OPM and a team, I don't know, I think it's pretty efficient.
The difference would be if you'd be working with one OPM team and one architect.
Right.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be any competition.
No, you don't have a wide range of ideas, but that's the common.
we can have them present on that as
Yeah,
part of
very
their,
interesting. Yeah. Hopefully
part
we'll
of
get
their,
some a little
pitch.
bit of thought behind it. Wow. Cool.
You need a motion to approve the enrollment projection.
Yes, so are there any other questions or anything regarding the letter? Points that we need to cover, because make sure we're clear. Okay. All right, then yes, I would entertain a motion and make sure I get this right, to accept the MSBA design enrollment projection letter and approve the study enrollment certification. Is there a motion?
You're moving.
Gordon moves,
Second that.
Henry seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, next steps and estimated timeline.
next step is I get to call MSBA tomorrow and say we approved it. When can we get on the approval, the board's approval docket? I think we'll go in October, which means we probably won't have an October meeting. We'll probably meet again in November. Maybe we can do it at Memorial so everyone can kind of get a sense of that building. And that's when we can start to plan the approach for going out to bid for an OPM. That's when it's going to start to move. So in that interim period, and if they get us in very early in October, I'll let everyone know. So keep the fourth Tuesday penciled in just in case. If we're toward the back end of it, we'll go with the November meeting. I'll dig up all of the old documents that we used for going out to bid for our OPM last time, and we had a pretty efficient process. We did a couple of nights of back-to-back interviews, if I recall, and then made a decision. They provide us a rubric of standards. We don't have to do this on our own either. It's all mapped out for us, what we'll need to do. It starts with a request for proposal. Firms will put in, we're on their radar screens. I'm already getting emails. People want to hear about our upcoming project. Once they submit their proposals, they're reviewed by either the full committee or a subcommittee. People are moved forward based on the rubric set of standards to an interview process. Then we have another grid to fill out at the interview process, and we then kind of tally up and make a decision as a group. At that point, we hand everything over to them, and they do everything from plan the meetings, run the meetings, help us build out our website, soup to nuts. They will take us through this process. And they'll have much more in-depth answers about MSBA than I do.
Very good. All right.
I'm excited.
This is
I'm
exciting.
really
This is
excited.
wonderful. The next item on the agenda says new business, but let's call that next meeting. So, let's say, looking at, if we're keeping the fourth Tuesday free, that means tentatively, October 22nd, and if not,
But most likely,
yeah,
November,
that's November 26th, if that's the case.
that's the more likely.
That's the more likely. So shall we just plan?
November 26th.
Yeah,
that
that's the
Thanksgiving?
It's the Tuesday. Thanksgiving is the 28th.
Keep them both penciled in as soon as I get word from MSBA about when it's much more efficient now because you don't have to go into Boston. They just dial you up on a Zoom. As soon as we get board approval to move forward, I'll let you know which of the two dates we need.
What was the first date again?
October 22nd. How did the time work out tonight for everyone? Was this better? Did this work out? So if we're planning, whichever the date is, if we're planning to meet at Memorial next time, do we want to try for the same setup, 6:30 for a tour?
Yeah.
6:30 for a tour, 7 o'clock for meeting?
Nobody falls off the stage.
We've adapted. We've grown into our new building.
All right, we have,
One piece of new business would be, we talked a little bit about it last time. I really, can go, whatever the will of the group is. There was a recommendation from a school committee member or two that maybe we should have all of our meetings here, for the Essex Building Committee. So if that makes sense to people. That's fine. I shared that the rationale for the middle high school was just that it's the district site, and it's a district project, and both communities do have a stake in it and have to approve it and have to fund it, but I am wide open. It's easy wherever we go.
I'll share an opinion on that. That it is a district site, but it's still in Manchester, and I think that there's value in visibility for if it's not terribly inconvenient for us to have these meetings here, especially as people start to attend and come to that.
Memorial, across the memorial office.
No, I think we should have our next one there so everyone can get a tour of Memorial, but
Oh, yeah.
once we get into, when we're doing the interviews for the OPM and the architect, I think the thinking is that it would be better if we held it.
So as a broad, what would be the next scheduled meeting, say, into January? What would be a tentative date for those?
If we stick with fourth Tuesday, January is the 28th.
Well, we're on November, sorry,
November was the 26th.
26. 26.
I can send a list
Yeah.
out. I think
And Christmas, we're gonna meet on
Christmas
Christmas Day.
Day, stick to
Well,
business.
it's 24.
That's
We
Christmas
might,
Eve.
we might need a funny schedule in January, like a couple of nights back to back, just to facilitate the OPM meetings.
Yeah.
Interviews, so kind of stay tuned on that. We'll roll out the availability calendars and figure it out when we have a better sense of that
But
timeline.
no meeting in December is scheduled for now.
Nothing for right now.
Can I add another thing that's helpful? Did we have an Outlook meeting, request on this? I love Outlook meeting requests.
It's a really good decompressing activity for me, so I will invite everybody to.
Yeah, I think-
You're deploying that.
Are you kidding? It's like an Outlook meeting,
Like a meeting in a town.
Calendar
Outlook,
invite.
yeah,
Calendar.
I thought it was some kind of
yeah.
gathering.
No, it's been, I
It
like
took me a
having
moment too.
I love it because it's a task that I can start
Or
and
Outlook
finish.
meeting.
Yeah, sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's on my calendar, then I know.
Yeah, and I'll put them as holds if we're uncertain. Other than
Any other
that,
pieces?
I'm out.
Anything else? All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Hello.
All in favor?
There you go.
All right, 7:59 PM, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.